Welcome and thank you for joining us for another live episode of Teachers for Teachers. That's you, moms and dads. I'm Dr. Dejana and I'm here again with Dr. Leah. Hello, Leah.
Hello,
Hello,
Dr.
Dr.
Dejana. So
Dejana.
good
So
to
good to
see
see
you.
you.
And
And
I'm really
I'm really
excited about
excited
this
about this
conversation today.
conversation
We're going
today.
to be
We're going to be
talking about
talking about
culturally
culturally
sensitive
sensitive
literature.
literature,
And
and
I
I
think, given
think, given
everything that's
everything
going
that's
on
going on
around the
around the
country right
country
now,
right now,
it's
it's
a
a
really
really
great
great
topic at a
topic at
really
a really
great
great
time.
time,
And we
and
have
we
an
have an
amazing
amazing
guest
guest
along with our
along with our
panel.
panel.
So, Dejana, why don't
Dejana,
you
why don't you
introduce
introduce
everybody?
everybody?
Yes, I am so honored and happy to introduce our guest for today. Welcome, a huge welcome to Leila Marchbanks. Leila Marchbanks is the creator of A Book at the Table, a fifth grade teacher and graduate from the University of Southern California. She has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology and a master's degree in communication management. Following graduation, she also served for Teach for America, which I think is really cool. So did I. So we have something in common there as well. Layla has always been passionate about diverse literature and making sure her students enjoy reading while investing in the experiences of other cultures. She was able to restructure the fifth grade language arts program at her institution to remove stories of traditional protagonists that excluded people of color and include literature that reflected diverse children along with their complex experiences. Her curriculum evaluates race, systemic racism, gender spectrum, and eliminating microaggressions and biases. A huge welcome to Leila Marchbanks. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, yes, of
And
course. Thank you for having me.
oh, we are so excited to engage in this conversation. I also want to quickly introduce our returning panelists that are going to contribute to the conversation. First off, let's say hello to Dr. Mark Riddle. Welcome again. We're happy to have you. Mark has a PhD in sociology from the University of California and currently serves as the University Director of Educational Effectiveness for West Coast University. Welcome, Mark. Also, a huge welcome to Dr. Marcela Klein Williams, an accomplished leader. Williams' strengths include organizational development, systems design, and strategic partnerships. She's led an impressive career in both teaching and administration, from preschool all the way up to the graduate level. Welcome, Dr. Marcela Klein.
And we
Awesome.
And
have
we have
Anne.
Anne.
Anne's with
Anne's
us
With
joined
today.
us
us as
Yeah.
again.
well. Great. So, Anne, always a pleasure to have you. Anne is an education consultant based in Los Angeles, California. She works throughout the United States and internationally as a public speaker, writer, and consultant with a focus on leadership. She is the acclaimed author of Life Lessons in Leadership. There we go, folks. An amazing panel and a very, very special guest.
So
So
let's jump
let's
right
jump
into
right into
the
the
website that
website
you've
that you've
created,
created,
Leila. And
Leila.
maybe you
Maybe
could
you could
talk a
talk
little
a
bit
little bit
about
about
what
what
inspired
inspired
you to
you
do
to do
this
this
and
and
what
what
issues you're
issues you're
addressing.
addressing.
Of course. Actually, this project of mine has been in the works for about 2.5 years now. I've been a teacher for about 10 years, but when I was given my own, I became a head teacher in my classroom. I noticed that a lot of the literature in my class was very outdated. That's something I noticed when I was even in school because everybody has read the same books over and over. You know, it's The Grapes of Wrath, Mice of Men. Anytime they have books in the classroom that reflect, people of color. It's books like To Kill a Mockingbird. And those books are just really outdated, and the students just don't want to learn from those anymore. And so I saw a need in my classroom to bring in new literature so that the students are engaged in what they're reading. They're excited to read about these new protagonists and characters that look like them, that act like them, that have the same experiences that they're having. And if not, if it's historical literature, it's still in the same form of, students that look like them. So I was able to, change the curriculum at my school. We threw out a lot of the older books that, the students didn't want to engage in with anymore. And I brought in a lot of books that have protagonists, African Americans, Asian, Latin protagonists, protagonists of different gender spectrums. I have books in my classroom about transgender students that are fifth graders. I have books in my classroom just appreciating different cultures and understanding different cultures. And at first it was a little nervous because I was like, the students gonna, are they going to love these books or are they going to hate them? But I've received so much positive feedback from the students and from parents. Every year I'm overloaded with emails and just letters from students saying, I love this book. I love this book so much. And then it was really exciting to see the students actually come to me and say, when is our next book club? We have to see what the next book is, or when is our next core literature book, coming out? When are we going to learn more? And I was like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. So when I saw, the need in my classroom, I was like, there has to be this need in other classrooms around the country, and especially in private institutions, which is where I teach. So I created a book at the table to actually piece out all of the books from preschool all the way to 12th grade, because you can go online and find, if you just type in, hey, diverse books for children, and you'll find a list of books that are just kind of all jumbled together. But my website takes out the middleman. So it's say, hey, I'm looking for a book specifically for a second grader. What should they be learning about? I'm looking for a book specifically for a sixth grader. What's the ideas that they should be learning about right now? And then in addition to just the books on the website, I'm also offering lesson plans, because yes, you can place these books in the classroom, but are you actually teaching about them in the correct ways in the classroom? Are you hitting the right historical points that these books, are explaining? So it's to help the teachers in the classroom bring these books in and teach it to their students in the appropriate way.
It's a lot of work that went into that website. And Dejana, I saw that you already have some questions to. You're muted. It is Zoom. We have it, and it is 2020, so there has to be somebody muted.
Yes, I was just jotting down some questions as you were talking, because I think this is such an amazing resource, not only for educators, but for parents as well, that really want to, we've learned in the past couple of months that parents are partners in education as well. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And so what advice would you give parents as well as educators like myself that work in schools, that are willing to explore these culturally diverse literature, these stories, but not sure how to facilitate a discussion about them with children? That confidence. If you're teaching the same book that you've taught for 15 years, you don't even really have to think about that, facilitating that discussion. It's going to happen because you've done it. But now that we are open to exploring more stories, because we've learned that there are many stories out there that need to be told, what type of advice would you give to encourage us to go for that and to support discussions about these diverse stories?
Well, actually, I'm really happy that I'm able to offer, diverse lesson plans for these books. So, for example, there are books for preschoolers and kindergartners. And yes, we usually bring in books for, this age level, and they usually have monsters and, mythical characters. But we definitely want to bring in books that have, different skin colors, different races, different religions. And that's one thing that my lesson plans will, help educators and, parents that are even doing at-home learning right now it'll give them resources on the lesson plans. Like, here are videos you can watch with your students. Here are, games you can play with your child. Here are discussions you can have in your classroom with students of that age, that they can start to understand and develop, these anti-bias practices, or even, anti-racist practices. Also with upper graders is, for example, one of the books that we read in fifth grade is called The Lions of Little Rock, and it actually talks about segregation and integration of schools. And at that time, it was it talked about a lot of hate groups, and the students probably hear about these hate groups, or maybe the history of like the N-word, and they know that these things are bad, but why are they bad? What is the history behind them? And I think when you're educating students about the history behind these things, then they will start to learn why I'm not supposed to use these words, why I'm not supposed to do certain things, why I'm not supposed to ask certain questions or, react a certain way when I'm in the presence of someone that doesn't look like me. So it's more about educating from behind so that the students know, where they can go in the future.
That's just so important. I love how you said it's about why, and you mentioned the first age group, you said preschool, kindergarten. We can start there. And that's just super powerful. And just I work in the middle school sector, and these topics do come up in middle school, and the children are not equipped with how to engage in these discussions and these topics, because it's just, oh no, don't say that, oh no, let's not talk about this. But they haven't gotten involved in a discussion about why and how and whose story is this. So I'm really excited that you've decided to spend a lot of time, energy, and your passion into providing this resource for us. Were you going to say something there, Leah?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, where do you start with folks that, who think that they're, like, I'm not racist. I have a black friend. I can't possibly be racist. And like, what literature do you encourage them to start with that helps them see themselves a little differently while they're doing the educating?
Well, definitely, I have a section on my website that's for educators and parents. And it's no coincidence that the very first book I have listed is called White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And it's a pretty much in your face, realization of here's some of the things that people have said in the past that it doesn't fly anymore. So, for example, I don't see color. I see.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't want people to not see color. I mean, I've been Black my entire life, and I want you to see my color. I want you to see how beautiful I think it is. I want you to see how beautiful our culture is, and even other cultures. I'm sure Asian people and Latin people feel the same way. Like, they want you to see who they are. That's why it's really important to have the different stories that even Disney's coming out with, different stories about different cultures. They are bringing more people to the table, giving them information about how to tell these stories correctly, because it's been historically done in the past where they didn't have these people at the table. And it's like, hey, let's put out these stories, these Disney stories, and they're not historically correct. And then the kids grow up with these stories, and it's like, well, that's not how that story was supposed to be told. So it's very important for educators to, educate themselves first, because you don't want them going into the classroom saying these things to children, saying everyone should be the same and everyone should, accept that we are the same and we are the same race, we are the same human race. And yes, we are the same human race, but we do have differences, and we need to understand, and appreciate everyone for these differences, no matter what they are.
So I want to also invite the rest of the panel to jump in. And let me also preface that with, I know that sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about this issue, even as, I know that there's no one here who has any direct bias or racism, but I wonder if there's a comfort in having the conversation.
And I'll jump in real quickly, only because, and oh my gosh, Leila, congratulations and thank you. Even though you created this 2 years ago, the timing could not be better now. And I was actually on surprise, another Zoom call earlier today, and that one happened to be with a group of about 20 school superintendents from across the U.S. And the initial focus was on reopening school and what do we do and how is that going to work and how are different people doing that. But what they brought up as a second topic that is most important for them to focus on, however they open school in the fall, is the issue of racism, equity, diversity. And I would say, Leah, all of them, if you ask them, they would say, oh, I'm not racist, so there's nothing, we need to talk. But they have all now understood that there is. And Leila, I will be sharing your website with them. So I think it's a wonderful resource. for educators. And the reality is, if we didn't know we needed to learn this, we know it now. And it doesn't matter, we're good people or whatever. There's just a perspective that we all need to better understand. So really appreciate your work on that.
Thank you, Anne.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Before the call came in, what I was thinking of too is, literature gets us to empathize, and it helps us to stretch. And I think one of the things that's really kind of a huge opportunity here is this literature, if it's shared across a whole school year or on the nightstand that people are reading, it's kind of this bit by bit that's happening of kind of empathizing with another person's lived experience of what that could be. So it's not confined to, hey, this is the month we're going to talk about it. It's just, another avenue of how do you start kind of thinking outside your own life and what your own experience is. And on the flip side of that is, I'm a woman of a certain age. And when I was a little girl, I remember a flip book with pictures. Little boys are going to grow up to be this, and little girls are going to grow up to be that. And I was precocious, and my mom tells a story of me always saying, but I don't want to be a nurse, and I don't want to be that. So how do you kind of embrace that when people are reading books, they can see themselves in that book. They can see who they're aspiring to be because they can relate to the characters in the story as well.
Right. And I have a few books, especially, I know I always revert back to preschool and kindergarten because that's where it starts and that's the beginning. There is a book called Mary Wears What She Wants. And I wish there was a book like that was out when I was much younger, because I was the girl that was referred to as the tomboy, which I try not to use that term for girls who just want to wear whatever they want. Yes, I wanted to wear, the basketball shorts and the t-shirts, and my favorite cartoon was the Ninja Turtles. And a lot of other students made fun of me about that. They're like, hey, we want to play Barbies and, we want to play dress up, and you like the Ninja Turtles. What is wrong with you? But if we had books like, like Mary Wears What She Wants, it's telling the students, like, this is okay. It doesn't make a student or a child different or, cast out because they want to wear something or they want to dress a certain way or they want to play with a certain toy. Like, children now are, all these toys are available for all kids. I know that's why a lot of, stores like Target and Walmart were targeted because they had the boys section and the girls section, and here are these toys and here are those toys for a specific, a specific gender. And that's just not how it is anymore. If you let a child be open and to explore, they will, explore their world. It doesn't matter if it's a girl's toy or a boy's toy. So
that's so true. It's reminding me of my own childhood. So I was a very curious child. I loved science and nature. And
I'm shocked to hear that, John. Shocked.
There weren't a lot of stories around me that showed little Black children engaging in science of any kind. And I remember when I had my daughter many years ago, my daughter is now 11 years old, I was so excited that there was this show on television called Dora the Explorer. I'm just saying, like, oh my gosh, that's me. But I didn't have that as a child. And so one of the things that I think is super important for all of us and for all of you out there, that we all as adults, we have some sort of privilege or power. And it is our opportunity to use that privilege or power to enact some sort of change, to tell that story. You know what I mean? So I think this conversation just lends itself, and it highlights the fact that we are all in different positions where we can share diverse stories, where we can put these experiences in front of young people so that they don't feel like maybe we felt 10, 15 years ago. And I'm saying 10, 15 years ago, but there are young people that show up in my classroom today that have grown up the same way that I did, and they don't have those models. And so we still need to focus our attention and make things happen. So I thought it was cool because it just brought up to me I have the privilege of being a scientist and an educator, and how am I going to use that power and that privilege to help others? How am I going to take my work and make it, I want it to be anti-racist work. Like, how am I going to work against systemic oppression and against systemic racism by using my place of power that I find myself at right now? So I just want to throw that out there. Not getting deep or anything. Just
well, we've not been a group to shy away from deep when necessary, so I would encourage it. But I also wanted to see, Mark, you're the only guy on the panel today, and I really feel like it's time you need to represent. I know that white males have had a hard time all these years, and so.
And definitely none harder than me, right? So, yeah, no, I mean, I can't say that it's a difficult time for a guy with white privilege as I do, but it's a confusing time, right? Like, because I feel like I do speak from a place of tremendous privilege, and I feel like just sometimes just stepping up and saying anything. Invites the criticism of, what puts you in a position to know anything like that? And I want to be the first to say I don't know, but I have a decent pedigree for stuff like that. I mean, when you're talking about elementary school literature, I just the first profound book I ever remember was probably fourth grade when our teacher read Diary of Anne Frank to us, and I was an all-white classroom, suburban Orange County at the time, but at least, we had a sense that there were people out there who suffered immense oppression, and I can't help but think that laid a foundation for later when, when issues of, how do you talk about Columbus came up, you'd say, he's not the conquering hero. He brings smallpox. Fuck it. He's not our guy. So, and I think about Jane Elliott too, right? Like, she's in this Iowa, white as the driven snow classroom. There's no literature at the time that has any kind of differences in it, but she's still able to pick out small things to help her students figure out that, that what happened to Martin Luther King Jr. was wrong. Right? I mean, you just have to kind of start where you are and hope for the best, I think.
That's such an important point, the start where you are point. And I want to say, I got a lot of pushback just recently, within the last couple of weeks, when I made a statement with a group of female friends, all of us around the same age, and I made the statement that we were talking about the protest. I said, I am embarrassed by white privilege. I'm embarrassed by the privilege given to me for no reason. Nothing I've done to earn it, nothing I've done to warrant it. But around the table, so there were 9 people around the table on Zoom. There were 9 people, and 2 of them stayed after the Zoom call to tell me that they really understood what it was I was saying and agreed with me. But during the rest of that conversation was really about, I'm not going to feel guilty about being, and I hadn't said I felt guilty. I said I feel embarrassed by the privilege that goes with this. And there was nothing in the conversation from that point forward that had any cultural value or ability to transition us. And maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I see this time in our lives as an opportunity to just rethink everything, to look at all of our conditioning and why do we think we know something? I mean, one of my favorite ever Mark Twain quotes is that man is not in trouble for what he doesn't know, but for what he knows for sure that just ain't so. And that's where I think a lot of us are, that I know I'm not racist. I now look at things like the unconscious biases that we carry, and if you're not willing to stop yourself and say, wait a minute, why do I think I know that? Or where does that come from? Then we don't gain anything from this.
Yeah.
So my question earlier, Leila, about how to talk to folks is really very personal. Like, how do we engage in this?
It's really important right now. We always think of the word allies. I always think of that like from the LGBTQ community. It's like we have our straight allies, but no, we need our white allies as well. It's really important for them to be able to understand or empathize with people of color right now, well, at all times, because I mean, if you look at our education system, that's who's teaching our children. There are not a lot of teachers that look like me. In my school right now, I am the only head teacher of color in the entire school. So it's really important for our allies to step up and actually be educated and know how to to teach these resources to the children, because they need that. They're the ones that are around the world teaching. It's also really important for parents to be able to be allies as well. I've received some pushback, obviously, from some of the books that I've had in my class. I had one parent tell me that their child was not old enough. This is a child that's 11 years old, saying that their child wasn't old enough to learn about police brutality. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, both of my children in my home, my two black male boys, are much younger than your child, and they've already been forced to learn about police brutality. We've already had to sit at a table, and I've had to have the talk already with my 9-year-old, and it's coming with my 4-year-old soon. And so I had to tell her, well, you have to think about the stories that your children are already hearing. I read a story to my son the other night from a book of fairy tales, and it was Little Red Riding Hood, and it was so violent. It was, the wolf ate grandma and then ate Little Red Riding Hood, and then the hunter comes along and chops open the wolf and out jumps the grandma. And I was like, whoa, this is, for kids. Or even children that have been forced to read William Shakespeare for so long. I mean, he talks about murder and incest and all of these and these books that are actually required reading for education for so long. So why are these books okay for children to be taught, but it's not okay for them to learn about police brutality? It's not okay for them to learn about systemic racism or anything that's plaguing, the community of people of color. So is it because you don't feel comfortable that your child is learning about this? Do you not feel comfortable that your child is learning how to be empathetic to other people? So it's really important for parents to even be open to letting their children learn about what's been going on in, communities around them for, hundreds and hundreds of years.
Such an important point.
I'm so glad that Leila at least 3 times mentioned empathy, empathize, something around that word empathy, because that really is, I think, what was the missing ingredient before. For people who really felt they were not racist, but they've not walked a mile in those shoes. And you have to really see that story and understand that story to truly live the anti-racist life. It's not enough just to say, oh, it's not me and all's good. And so that we can at a parallel teach both empathy and the experience of other groups, I think is critical.
Leila, I wonder if you're thinking about putting together a few books that adults could read to set, I think about right now on Netflix and Amazon, Netflix has a section that says, do you want to proceed to the homepage, or would you like to explore these topics? And they're all relevant to the marches and the protests that are going on. So I commit, since I can't go out to anything right now, I just committed to educating myself and going through. Right now I'm reading Water Dancer. Oh. It's so heartbreakingly wonderful.
I actually teach from a video. Tinashe Coates actually has a video online. You can just Google it. It's about why other races can't say the N-word, which is really important because, rappers say the N-word all the time. And and rap music is actually the #1 genre of music right now. So, everyone all around the country, all around the world are hearing these songs, and they're hearing this word that's been used to oppress Black people for so long. And so, of course, people have questions about, well, why can't I say it? They're saying it, obviously they're over it. And he puts it so beautifully of, why, Black people, we are the only group of people that have actually taken a word that was used to oppress us, and then now we use it as a term of endearment. Other races don't do that. So yes, there are other racial slurs out there for other people of color, and they haven't taken those words and use them as terms of endearment in their community. So it's like, why are Black people doing it? Why are we still using that word? I don't use it in my home. I don't I don't teach my children to use it. I know they're going to hear it. My oldest son, he plays football and basketball. I know his teammates are probably going to use it, or he's going to hear it at some point. So we do have to have conversations in our home to talk about what is right, or what is the perception that you want people to see you, so that those conversations don't come up. But yes, I have it in one of my lessons, the Tinashe Coates video about why others can't say it. Actually, no one should.
I'm definitely going to check that out. We are not going to do a stream on Monday, but I'm wondering if we could continue this conversation on Wednesday next week, because I think there's still plenty more to sort through. And in particular, I want to talk about the book about people, purple people, and what I'm learning about the realities of those kinds of books too. So shall we say goodbye and thank everyone, Dr. DeJohna?
I think we should. Well, what an amazing group of panelists. Thank every single one of you guys for what you brought to this conversation. And thank you guys at home for listening. Join in. We're going to enact change together. I'm Dr. DeJohna. It's Dr. Leah. And that's a wrap for Teachers for Teachers. That's you, moms and dads. We hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.